Senior College Planning Night. I want to start off by just introducing you to some of the pivotal people here that will be very impactful for your children's senior year. Myself, my name is Lonnie Diggs. I'm one of the assistant principals for the senior class of 2025, along with Ms. Stephanie Sotzek. She's our assistant principal for the class of 2025. Ms. Danielle Reno, she's up in the corner, top corner. She's our scheduling and operations assistant principal. Next, I want to introduce our three counselors for the senior class. We have Ms. Donahue, it's right down here, Ms. Lombardo, and also Ms. Remenser. Also, we have our college career center staff. We have Mr. Walakinde, Ms. San Diego, Mr. Haynes, and Ms. Kevin, who's right here. These four people are here. They'll go into a little bit more detail about how to help your children during this senior year.
We're obviously your sons and daughters counselor, but we also have a whole team now working with us, which is in room 255, so that if we ever look like we're busy or we can't get a hold of them or can't get a hold of us, we have a load of people here who can support your children and support us. So please make sure you know those names and those faces, and they're in 255. So we're all we're in our college year today to try to just raise the awareness of students for the college process. So I have my sweatshirt on tonight. And then first off, we really want to focus on how to support your child through the application process, because you are a pivotal part of this process, and really support is the key. Everyone can look up how to do things, but it's really that element of support. And I guess the biggest thing that a student actually said the other day is they said, you know, I can fill out the applications, I can go through this process, I know my address, I know how to look things up. It's the whole emotional thing. I just need someone to sort of walk with me through this. And that's where you come in as parents and as support people and as guardians. And we want to sort of focus on that, like what your role can be for that. We're going to go through a bunch of items tonight, just sort of some detailed work of parts of the application, and just sort of explain some terms. So the first thing is we really work through Naviance. Naviance is sort of our organizational tool. Everybody has access to that. Your sons and daughters should be able to show you their Naviance account, and that is sort of the organizational tool, and we use a lot of the features to help sort of walk through this process. A term you're going to hear is matching your account with a Common App. We're going to talk about the Common Application, which is a vehicle that you can apply to a lot of colleges all at once. And if you conceptualize and you think about the college application process, there's the application part that your sons and daughters do, and then there's the school part, which encompasses like recommendations and the transcripts, and all of that has to work together. So sort of the Common App, the college applications, and all of our school part is sort of the college process. So when we do things via the Common App and using Naviance, we have to get them to connect. So that term that we use to connect it is called matching. And that's how everything works to get everything sent where it's supposed to be. So we'll go in a little bit more detail with that. We're going to talk about a brag sheet. A brag sheet is something that can be found on Naviance, and it is basically what it is. You're supposed to brag about yourself. It's a series of questions that are designed to get a little bit more details out of your sons and daughters about what their likes are, what their interests are, things, how they filled out their high school experience. It's a very, very important tool. How I explained it to the kids is that, you know, you can write a recommendation based upon, you know, maybe what you see on an activity sheet, but when you look at that brag sheet, there are things that you either didn't pick up or that you didn't know about a student, and it can take maybe more of a generic recommendation to a really exceptional one, because you're just getting more details about the student. So it's really important. Take the time to fill out that brag sheet. We're going to talk about requesting letters of recommendation, and then the big thing is release of information. Nothing starts in this whole college process without a release of information. It's very, very important too. We do not give out any information about your sons and daughters unless you have explicit permission. So really, anything you've gotten in the mail or anything like that so far, we haven't given anything out. So you always have to be a little suspect of that, of those things. You're gonna get a lot of scam things in the mail. So just keep that in mind, that you really have to complete a release of information in order for us to disclose anything to colleges. We're gonna talk about how to request transcripts and fee waivers as needed, and then really just the emotional support part. This can be a stressful process. Like I said, it's not really the filling out the address or writing down your activities. It's just sort of the process of selecting a school for the first time. A lot of these kids have moved from kindergarten to elementary to middle school without having a choice or a say, because they just moved along with the district. And the fact that they can choose where they want to go for college is a very big deal. And it can feel very big to them. And I think that's where you guys come in. It might just be sitting with them for however long it takes, just to be available to answer a question. It's just sort of walking with them through this process that can be really valuable. Another really good, important piece of advice that another parent had told me is that sometimes as parents you can tend to, I guess, bug your kids a little bit about this. What are you doing? Where you are with this process? And the kids feel that. So it may be a good tip to once a week maybe decide. Maybe Sunday after dinner or whatever night you're going to do it. Just once a week, ask each other for updates and say, "Have you done this? Have you connected with your teachers?" Just kind of keep it to small and targeted, because a little bit every day they tend to go to kids down, and that's where you can see a lot of that frustration. So that's just something to think about. Remember, this is an emotional process for them. It's an emotional process for parents too. I mean, I don't have to tell you this whole part about where they're going to go. You don't have control over it. I mean, there's a million feelings in this, and we do try to remind the students of that too. This is a process that is important for parents as well. There's a lot of excitement. I mean, there's a lot of stretching and letting go and all those emotions that come with it. So we're all very aware of that. So it's always important, take a breath and try to just recognize where you are and just reach out for support. So the next slide, I feel like we are going to delve on a little bit more into the Common App.
Most of our students, most of your children are going to use the Common App. It's basically a place where you apply to multiple colleges in one portal. They only have to fill out one application, and then it goes to the multiple schools that they're applying to. We have detailed guides, step-by-step guides available that we'll share with you guys. We've also shared them with the students and went into a more detailed description of this earlier in the student presentation. But basically, they're going to set up an account, they're going to add the schools into the Common App that they're applying to, and then fill out the elements of the application. So, back when I went to college, and you guys, you probably filled out one for every school you were going to, and you were repeating that same information every single time. This condenses everything into one place so that it's just easier and takes a lot less time. So we do encourage the students to use the Common App and see what schools they're applying to accept it. There will be some exceptions to this. Some schools don't work with the Common App, they have their own system. So for those schools, they're still going to apply directly on that college's website. So Common App will hopefully mitigate a lot of that and condense it into one, but they might still have some one-offs, like Penn State is one of them. So they'll just have to see on the college website, or when they're doing their Common App, if they're able to add that school into the account. So they'll know pretty easily whether or not it accepts it or not. It does take some time to complete, just like any college application, but the good thing is you're doing it one time versus 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So when they're sitting down to do this, or if you're sitting down to help them, just make sure you have time available to do this. We told the students when they're doing their applications to have their important documents in front of them, transcript, resume, any rec letters, or anything that the students, if they're looking, don't panic, but let us know if they're seeing anything that looks off, because there's some weird things that happen over the summer. So we're cleaning everything up, but if you guys or your students are looking and see anything, just let us know. We're working on fixing it.
So before I forget, I just want to mention something that you're going to see when you do match your account. And matching is really just a couple questions. It's the student putting in their email and checking off the FERPA. They're going to see something called a FERPA release. It's very important. You do want to waive your rights to see your letters of recommendation. Letters of recommendation really don't mean much if the colleges know that your sons and daughters have seen them. They want the teachers to be honest. I've never seen teachers write anything bad about students, but you do want to make sure that it has some validity to it. So when you do sign it, the kids will ask, what does this mean? And they do want to waive their rights for that. So when you're going through this process, you want to make sure you check that box. So first off, with letters of recommendation, you want to make sure to see if the college does require it. Not every college wants it. Some of the big schools, like Penn State, they don't want them. They have too many applications. They don't use that as part of their process. So just make sure, first off, do they need it? And you can find that out in the college website, or also on Naviance has that. And then you also want to know if they want somebody specific. Sometimes, I believe it's Drexel, will ask for something like maybe a math teacher or a science teacher. Sometimes it's dependent on their major. So just make sure you're careful with who you choose for that. Other than that, you want to figure out who knows me best. You want the teacher that is going to be able to give the most detailed, thoughtful, thorough recommendations. So you want to figure out who knows them best. Anyone that is connected with Upper Darby High School can send it through Naviance. But say that there is somebody at, a community organization that or an employer that your son and daughter works with. They can certainly send them, but they need to send them separately on their own, like send them directly to the college. But if they're affiliated with Upper Darby and they have a Naviance account, they can use this process that we'll talk about. First thing we want to do is we want to talk about manners and etiquette with the students. Teachers really don't have to write letters of recommendation. It's not part of their normal job description. It's something that they want to do because they want to see your sons and daughters succeed, and they want to see them get into those places that they want to go to. But we ask that the students be respectful of that and that they ask them first, because it is a courtesy. So you want to make sure that they ask them, and this is the part that kids get really nervous about. They don't know how to do this. So they can send an email, or they can talk to them in person. And the email can simply say, hey, I'm interested in going to Westchester, and I felt like I really had a great experience in your class. Would you mind writing a letter of recommendation, for me? Most of the time the students say yes, or the teachers say yes. Every now and again you're going to say, look, I have got 15 kids that just asked me. I can do it, but it's going to take a couple weeks. So sometimes they'll get that response. But you want to coach the students a little bit on how to do that email. That can be a little intimidating for them. Typically, the teachers respond back yes, and then I tell the students, okay, then you want to send a reply and say thank you very much, and then you offer to say, hey, look, I did my brag sheet, here you go, here's a resume for you, I'm going to send you the link on Naviance. So after they basically get that verbal or email agreement, then they are going to go into their Naviance account, they're going to go under the letters of recommendation, and as long as a release is signed, they're going to be able to go through the different prompts and select that teacher and where they want that recommendation to go. So it's really working through that process. We did send that out to the students. If they have any questions about it, they can see the college and career team people, they can see us. There's loads of help as to how to actually do that. The other thing is you want to make sure that you give teachers fair warning for this and amount of time. You want to give them a couple weeks. You can't just say, the application's due tomorrow, can I have a letter of recommendation? These things take time. I know for myself, I labor and go through a bunch of edits for these. It's not anything that I want to do last minute. It's something that we really care and we want to do a good job with. So you want to give us the time for this. And then the other part is that you really want to thank the teacher. Really just a nice thank you note is sufficient just because they did take their time out of the school day to complete that. All right, next up we have SATs.
So SATs, hot topic, students want to know about it. A lot of schools are still test optional, so the first step is going to be see if the schools require it. You can see this information directly on the school's website, looking at their admissions requirements, or also in Naviance. We taught the students how to find this information in Naviance, so they should be able to find it. But that will be the first step. See if the school requires it. If not, then the student can decide if it's going to help boost their application or if they feel like their application is strong enough without that. So thinking about GPA, classes that they took, the level of the classes that they've taken, extracurricular activities, things that they're involved in outside of school, all of those pieces make up the entire application. So if they find that maybe they're lacking in some areas and want to boost it and they think they'll get a good score, they could go ahead and consider that. But again, it'll first come down to whether or not the college requires it, and then kind of having that conversation about whether or not it will help or not help, and going from there. The students will register through their College Board accounts. Everyone should have one at this point since they've likely taken the PSAT already. So they'll log into that account and register directly. We cannot reset passwords or access student passwords. So if they need help with that, they do have to contact the College Board. Most times they can reset it on their own, but sometimes they'll have to call and get help with that. But that all goes through the College Board. The student is responsible for sending the scores to the colleges, so we do not have access to sending SAT scores. The student will send them directly through their College Board account, and when they sign up for the SAT, they'll actually list the schools that they're applying to on that registration so that the College Board will know to send them right away. So that is all handled outside of us. We can help navigate those steps, but it's not really something that we can control or really help them with internally. The next test from today is December 7th. So obviously that test date is after the application timelines that we are sharing with students. Ideally, they're going to have applications submitted by Thanksgiving if they're applying regular decision. But if they're taking a test after that, they can indicate that on their application and let the schools know that they're registered for a test in December. The scores will go to the school, and then the school will provide their decision after they receive that score. So it's a bit of a process, but again, you're just going to start with whether or not it's required for the schools that they're applying to, and then maybe have a conversation about, will it benefit them? What are the pros and cons of taking it? Is it worth it? Weigh out the risks and the benefits, and go from there. We have fee waivers available for the SAT, so if you think that your student would qualify for one, you can just reach out to the counselor directly and we'll help you with that part.
Okay, next up we have our timeline. So basically, right now, you want to continue to focus on grades. The college's first impression is really going to be that 9th, 10th, and 11th grade transcript with that cumulative GPA. That is going to be their first, thing that they're going to see and try to evaluate. They all want to see senior year grades, but sometimes they will wait on a decision in order to see the first marking period or the way to the second marking period. So that's pretty common. The best thing you can do is just to really encourage everyone to get the best grades that they can and to have a good, solid schedule to try to give them the best chance of getting in. They can also decide if they need to take the SAT. So go through that, what we just talked about with the SAT. Is it something that's going to help them? Like if you're not a great test taker, but your GPA is great, you're probably good with SAT optional. If your GPA isn't good, but you're an awesome test taker, then that goes into that decision. Decide on your college list. Usually you have about 8 to 10. You should not need to do 40. You should not need to do 20 schools. Really, it's 8 to 10. And that goes back into, last year when we really talked about your research and finding your fit and to think about, your reach, your safety, your target schools. You also want to do that financially. You don't want to have all private schools. You want to spread it out with some state schools, state-related. You want to definitely have a variety. So, last year when the kids did the research with that, you want to, make sure that is looking, the 8 to 10 schools are encompassing those criteria. You want to visit campuses or utilize the in-house rep visits at Upper Darby. Visiting campuses is really huge. We are lucky that we live in an area that you could visit a number of schools really within a half hour. You could do it on a morning, you could do it on an afternoon. Visiting really gives you a ton of firsthand information. I had a student who was really worried about how are they going to make this decision, and once they visited, they had all the information that they needed. It helped them. They saw the campus. They're like, you're either going to love it, you're going to hate it, you're going to like some parts of it. It's really hard to make a decision when you haven't stepped foot on the campus. And a lot of times kids will get stuck with this part. And actually getting on campus, it becomes alive, the decision becomes real, you get more information to help them make that decision and move forward. So that's something to think of. You can't always get to the campuses, that's very true. So we actually are lucky that we have some college reps come visit us. They can sign up for those on Naviance, and they can meet with the actual reps and talk and have their questions answered. But really, I can't stress visiting enough. A lot of the colleges spend thousands of dollars making their websites really, really pretty, and you want to make sure that your experience matches that website. So just keep that in mind. So visiting is really important. Working on that college app and essay. The essay is another thing that stresses kids out a whole lot. I'm just going to tell you right now, they're going to need to edit it probably 5 or 6 times. That's normal, okay? They should be working with an English teacher. They can talk to any of us, anyone in the college and career team, to help try to get that idea. Sometimes it's really coming up with the idea that is the hardest part. And that's where, if we know the students, we can really help sort of brainstorm with them and see what we think would be a good topic. A lot of the prompts are pretty much just tell us about yourself, which is really hard to write about because you're sort of like, oh my gosh, that's just such an open-ended question, and that really stumps students. So they do need a lot of talking through that and really coming up with some good ideas. But the essay is a big deal, and you want to make sure that they edit it and they proof it. You don't use, AI for it, none of that stuff that is so tempting, so just be really careful about that. They can run it through all those generators, so, you want to really be careful that you're not taking someone else's work. Looking ahead, October 1st is a very, very, very big deadline. You all should bookmark that or put it in your phones. October 1st is when FAFSA opens. That's the financial aid website. We're going to hear a little bit more from that from Ms. Catlett, but October 1st is a very big deal. It's when you can start to fill out the financial aid forms. Last year, as you probably heard in the news, was quite a disaster with financial aid. So they're going to start out with a soft opening with it, and then they're going to sort of roll it out. But just be prepared. October 1st is when the financial aid process starts. November 1st to the 10th are the early decision deadlines. So keep in mind, if we think November 1st to the 10th are the early decision deadlines, we require 2 to 3 weeks. Especially, I have to tell you, more like 3 weeks, because October can get really, really, really busy. They have to tell us that they need transcripts. So keep in mind, if we say November 1st, we really, the first, second week in October, we need those requests in, okay? So the first 2 weeks in October are very big for deadlines. Thanksgiving is a good target time to think about having all your applications in. Keep in mind, if it's a January 1st deadline, there's Christmas, there's holidays, everyone's closed. You have to account lead time for that, for everyone to get their stuff in. And then after you apply throughout the year, in the springtime, hopefully anywhere from January until April, you'll get the financial aid information, and then May 1st is the day that hopefully all this stress is over and you've made the decision as to where you're going to go. So May is when you do the final decision and deposit. The deadlines, we can't stress that enough. Please, 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 it is really hard when a student comes to you and they're like, can you get this done? It's due tomorrow. And as much as we love everybody, it's just not possible. And it's also not fair to the other students who did what they're supposed to. So it's very, very hard for us. There's a lot of paperwork and there's a lot of time that goes into doing these applications. So please be respectful of everybody's time. We want to really do a good job for your sons and daughters. All right, so I mentioned the college rep visits. So we are lucky enough to have Ms. White here, who is going to talk about specifically how to arrange and be part of these college rep visits.
Okay, so to help your students with their decisions, we bring in so we bring in a number of reps. This is going to be under their Naviance account or in their Naviance account under colleges. And if you go to college and then college visits, there's a number of colleges there. We offer 2 times. They can either do 8:30 to 9, or is it 8:30 to 9 virtually, or during flex period on campus. On Friday, as well as a rep from a congresswoman who is sending someone in to discuss getting nominations for military academies. But your students should, I would encourage them to go into Naviance. This is live, so as colleges are requesting, we're updating it, so they shouldn't just go in one time. They should go in maybe daily, maybe once or twice a week to see what new colleges are there. And we encourage them, if they don't see colleges there that they would like to visit, that they let us know, and we would reach out to those schools to see if we can either set up some sort of rep visit, whether virtually or in person. Anything else?
This is definitely a good opportunity to take advantage of, especially if you guys are going to have maybe a difficult time scheduling and getting transportation and getting out to visit schools. The reps will come here. A lot of times they will offer admissions advice. They will review transcripts right here while they're here. They'll talk to your students. So it's definitely something to really take advantage of.
Yes. So with financial aid, you're going to start on studentaid.gov. There are many scam websites out there, so I would encourage you to make sure that every website or the website that you go to says .gov at the end. If you type into Google FAFSA, it's the very first link that pops up. Anything under that is either going to be guidance or a scam. It takes about 30 minutes to complete. I would say after year one, during year one, I would take about an hour just to sit down, really go over everything. You're going to want to have all of your forms ready when you start the FAFSA form. As mentioned, it comes out on October 1st, but you can save it. So if you start it and you need to come back to it, you're able to save it.
Ms. Catlett, I'm in charge of the College and Career Center, so it's located in 255. Students have access to us before school or after school or during flex. If the teacher feels it's appropriate to release them from class time, like sometimes maybe they're done with their projects or whatever they're working on, and as long as they get a pass, they can come see us. So the FAFSA is the federal government's application to aid. I'm going to go over on a different slide the kind of different kinds of aid, but basically, outside on the tables, there's a brief kind of cheat sheet on how to create an FSA ID. The FAFSA is kind of 2 steps. You create an FSA ID, which is basically a virtual ID card. And so you verify your information, the parent or guardian, the student verifies theirs, and then that's how they sign the document. And so if you have students in previous years graduating, so basically alumni and or older brothers and sisters, you might already have an FSA ID as a parent or guardian. But the graduating seniors will need to create an FSA ID. Sometimes that actually takes longer, 20 to 30 minutes to create the FSA ID. So if I click these links at the top, it would show you the cheat sheets that I have out there. The second link is the cheat sheet in Spanish. So if you want to pick one up on the way out, you're more than welcome to. There's also a white flyer that has like the contact information that you're going to kind of need to create your FSA ID. And you can write it all down and then store it maybe in a file cabinet, take a picture of it, save it on your Google Drive, whatever you want. Because like I said, if you have siblings, right, if you have multiple children in the district, you're going to need that same FSA ID information. There are ways to recover it, and I can share videos with you, but if you save it, then you're good to go. So outside, there's a cheat sheet on the FSA ID, as well as like an info sheet about what you might do. There's also guides to state aid that include information on the federal financial aid form, and all of that's outside, but I also have access to it in my office. You can have your student drop by. So in the middle link, which you'll get a copy of this, that middle link is a guide, and it has a bunch of different tips about the FAFSA. So if you have concern, if you're wondering, go to those resources here in this slideshow first, because it really answers a lot of questions. We do have FAFSA completion nights. So we will host a specialist from FIA. Her name is Fran. She's fantastic. If you have some kind of difficult situations, like perhaps you own a business, right? So you don't file a 1040, those kind of sticky wickets, right? She comes and she helps answer questions. You're basically going to be giving your financial information over to the federal government on your student's application. And then by no means does that mean you're on the hook for anything, but to make your student eligible for federal financial aid, you must share those financials. And then the schools will take that information, and then every school will package your student through financial aid based on the numbers that you share with them. Okay, so that's how the FAFSA works. If you refuse to help your student with the FAFSA, you're pretty much closing the door to any federal aid. Okay? You are not on the hook for any loans by filling out the FAFSA. You're opening up doors to free money, right? So that's what I want you to remember. But if you have questions, we're here to answer them. So now let's go back to this. So it's a little confusing, but it's not really. I think the most confusing thing about financial aid is that they use the term scholarship all the time everywhere, okay? So that can be confusing to students. They'll show up at my door and they'll say, I need to get some scholarships. So the first thing we go over is the fact that you will get scholarships in your financial aid package from every college that packages you, and they use the term scholarship in the financial aid package. I literally have a financial aid offer in my office stuck to the wall, and I show every student, this is what a financial aid package looks like. They give you numbers for first semester, numbers for second semester. They show how much in total it costs, and they show how much total aid you're getting, and then you see that unmet need. So the example that I have is from Gwynedd Mercy. It's a great nursing school. And so at the time, I think this is a 2017 offer, there's about 10 grand of unmet need. So where does that come from? That comes from the federal financial aid form. They crunch those numbers, and Gwynedd Mercy says this family can afford $10,000 times potentially 4 or 5 years. That's what you would be on the hook for as a family. And that could all end up being student loans, but it could also be outside scholarships to cover that $10,000. Okay? So there's kind of like inside money and outside money, and that's the way I think about it, and it's a little bit easier. So step one, every year your student is enrolled in a 4-year or 2-year institution. If you want to get financial aid, you must fill out the FAFSA. So it's really important if you attend a workshop that you come. The students must be there. This is very much hand in hand with parent and guardian and student, but if the student doesn't come to the financial aid workshop, Fran won't help you. Because we're basically, what are we doing? Are we giving fish, or are we teaching students how to fish? We're teaching students how to fish, so the student must be there. If they're a student athlete, they need to come after practice. We can't help an adult who doesn't need to go to college, right, fill out the financial aid form to go to college. We need the student there. It's critical. So every year you fill out the FAFSA. It opens up roughly in October, and it stays open, right? Because students attend community college, and they're still filling out the FAFSA. If you go onto the federal website today, you'll see that the FAFSA is still open for this current year, right? So it never really closes. They just are going to refresh it with the new application. So you don't want to go on right now because it can be very confusing, and I'll show you why. In that federal aid, there are 3 kinds of money. The first kind is free money. That's our favorite, right? That's grants and scholarships and anything in your financial aid package that they're giving to you. That's what we want, okay? Number 2 would be loans. There are unsubsidized and subsidized loans. We can get into that, but your student will go through a mandatory promissory note signing counseling session so that by federal law, they must be guided on what they're doing. You don't just give a student a loan. That's not how it works, okay? So there's loans. That's the second kind of money. The third kind is work study. So sometimes, often college campuses will have a work study office. Sometimes you have to step through that process, but when they're filling out their financial aid form, it can say, are you interested in work study? And you just want to click that box. Like when I was on campus, I was like a research assistant, undergrad. And the money that I made went to the bursar's office and straight to my bill. But most work study, it's just a cash out. It's just like having a part-time job. Okay, so that's federal financial aid. When you stay in the state of Pennsylvania, you are eligible for state aid. So the state of Pennsylvania and FIA will send you an email to the student after you've filled out the FAFSA that says, oh, hey, you qualify for state aid. 2 years ago, it happened right when you were completing your FAFSA. They made major changes to the FAFSA, so this year I can't tell you when it's going to happen. Last year, when they made the changes, students got an email. Hopefully, it will be the same as 2 years ago. You'll complete the FAFSA, and then there'll be this very underwhelming prompt. I wish that like confetti would fall and there'd be like a party and balloons, but it doesn't happen that way. It says, oh, you qualify for state aid. Would you like to fill out that application? If you click the box yes in that moment, it will pre-populate, so information on the FAFSA will go directly to the FIA. This year, I don't have word on whether or not that will happen. So it'll either be there when you're completing it and you want to make sure you read, and if it's not there, then you'll get an email that says you qualify for state aid, would you like to fill out the application, and you say yes. If you stay in the state of Pennsylvania, you can get money from both buckets. If you go to Howard, you're not getting state aid because Howard's in Maryland, right? Or DC, not sure. So it's just really important that you understand those two buckets and that there's two applications. All right, you also apply to the state grant every single year if you stay in the state. The third type of money is where you kind of can backfill that unmet need. And that's what I call scholarships and I call outside scholarships. So there's 3 categories. So when students ask about scholarships, I tell them, higher the probability, the less amount of people that are applying. So the number 1 scholarship that all students should apply to that would cover basically costs that are not met by the financial aid package, right, would be the Upper Darby High School scholarships. In January, students will come into an assembly like this, and they'll be told about our program. You get a packet, there's a deadline, it's hard and fast. Every student who can pick any scholarship that they think they're qualified for because you'll read about every scholarship that we have, and then they should apply, and they should meet the deadline. And then in May, when the senior award assembly happens, those scholarships are awarded. So you have a high probability of winning one of those scholarships because you're only competing against the building, just the seniors who apply. And you'd be shocked, not every student applies, okay? So that's the number 1 scholarship you apply to. The next thing would be community grants. Those are just grants out in the community. So if you start small, your town is smaller than your county. Your state is larger than your county, right? So you just go out. So I would be searching in your Chromebook scholarships in Drexel Hill, scholarships in Clifton Heights. The reason why there's no massive place to go find scholarships is because scholarships are being created as we speak right now. Somebody is passing away, somebody is giving money to some group to create a scholarship in the name of some loved one that they care about. So there's no warehouse for scholarships. You just search for them, and the web is fantastic. There are some kind of places that I'm describing that I say don't exist, like FastWeb and Going Merry, and you'll find all of that if you search. In Naviance, there's also a scholarship tab, and you can click it, and there's hundreds of scholarships there. But there isn't a one-size-fits-all, and this isn't something that a caring adult in the building can do for your student, because everything about your student that makes your student is specific to a scholarship. So Ms. Catlett can't find your son a scholarship because I don't know your son that well, but your son can find a scholarship by searching what's important to them, right? There's people in ag, there's people in business, there's people that become dentists and doctors, there's people in the trades that offer scholarships. There's a scholarship at Delaware County Community College. If you're interested in the trades, you can apply to it, and then it can pay for your program at Delaware County, but it's only in the trades, and a family created that. So scholarships are popping up nonstop, and it's not a one-size-fits-all. That's why the heavy lift is on the student to research those scholarships and then meet the requirements of the application. Often it will be an essay. Sometimes it will be, we need your federal financial aid form or copies of a page of it, or we need proof of this or proof of that, like whatever. So if it's confusing, students can come to ask us and we can help them. The last thing is college-specific grants. Once you're enrolled on a campus and you're a 4-year or 2-year student on a campus, a college campus, there may be scholarships at that campus that you can apply to because now you're a good student. So if you're in good standing, which means you don't have any strikes against you, you have A, B's, and C's, and whatever the criteria are. So once you're a Temple student, you should go to the Temple Scholarship website and research what scholarships are available to current Temple students, and then you should apply to those scholarships as well. All of that outside money will meet that unmet need. Okay? So the terms get thrown around, but there's your financial aid package that comes from the data from the feds and the state's application, and they package you. And in that financial aid package, it includes state aid and federal aid. Then there's maybe some unmet need based on that data that you shared. How you can cover that unmet need is through these scholarships. There's one caveat. If you were to get a full athletic-related aid scholarship, you might not want to do any outside scholarships because technically you're getting a full ride. And sometimes with student athletes, if they earn some community scholarship, it then changes the financial aid package. So that's the one piece of information, but there are very few full rides in athletics. So it's something that would be a specialized case that you would have to come and speak to us. Like, should I apply for the Upper Darby scholarships? I just got a full ride offer to go play this at that school, right? So that would be something that you'd want to ask us about. All right, so now let's go back to that quick sheet. So you use the correct tax information for the year. So you can submit the forms based on those dates. So if you plan to attend college in this current year, then you'd be using 2022 tax information. Most of our seniors are going to plan to attend college 25-26, so you can submit October 1 to June 30th, and then you're using your income tax information from 2023. The only thing about waiting until June 30th to fill out the FAFSA is that the state aid does run out. So you might be able to turn in your federal financial aid form, but the FIA, if it's running smoothly, not last year, but hopefully this year, there will be a deadline of May. So if you waited till June, then you wouldn't get that email saying, hey, you qualify for state aid, because the state aid is gone. Does that make sense? So you just have to kind of watch that deadline, but you'll know about that, right? So it does behoove you to start early, but it's not like when students race into my office on August 15th and say, Ms. Catlett, I missed the deadline. I'm like, no, you didn't, right? You have plenty of time to complete the FAFSA, right? So that's what's kind of important, but we're here to guide you.
I just wanted to throw it out there that schools or institutions typically give the largest financial aid packages to students who plan to be residential students. So I want you to keep that in mind, that living on campus will give you the highest chance of earning the most money in your financial aid package. And it's something that I've had to coach students through who maybe get their financial aid package and realize that they don't have enough. So they say, oh, I'm going to not live on campus so that I can have enough. If you choose not to live on campus after getting your financial aid package, they will reduce your financial aid package. So please keep that in mind. Okay, so some FAFSA tips. Parents are a huge part of the process, but that should say parents and guardians. As someone who did not have either of my parents during this process, I was really fearful that I would not be able to either qualify for FAFSA or I wouldn't be able to complete it in its entirety, but it is about your household and not about biology. So if you're an uncle or an aunt or a grandparent and you're here today, you will still be able to complete FAFSA. They want the household information and not biological information. You want to have all of your information. It's much easier if you have all of the information. I recommend using the tip sheet that Ms. Catlett brought up. Look at all the information documents that you need and start to gather that information now, like today, so that by October 1st you're ready to just jump right in. There are links that the IRS can use to autofill, or that you can use to have the IRS autofill most fields. So if anyone has ever done like their own taxes online, you typically can pull it from the IRS website. FAFSA offers the same thing. You can add up to 10 schools, and I would recommend you do so. Getting a financial aid package from a school does not guarantee that you will get that entire financial aid package. It is just an offer, and then you have to accept it. And then one thing about accepting those packages, as Ms. Catlett mentioned, you do get offers for loans. You can ask for those loans to be reduced if you have other ways of paying. So you can like alter your own financial aid package with financial aid offices. You don't just have to accept what they offered. You may not be able to ask for more, but say you want to have little to no loans, you can ask them to remove them or reduce them before accepting your package. And then it just helps to order the schools by preference so that you get the most aid from the schools that you are really vying for.
We do have a QR code for questions that you might have, or if you go home and talk about this with your student and you guys have questions or you think about this, we're going to share these slides with you so that you can have access to everything that we've talked about, plus the student slides that we went over this morning, which have a little bit more detail, especially with Naviance. There's a lot of screenshots and all that stuff. So once you look everything over, if you have questions, please use this QR code, or of course reach out to your counselor directly and we'll help you. A lot of times these conversations are pretty individual and every case is different, so we want to be able to help you navigate the process. So look over everything, use the QR code, reach out to us. We're here to help you. I think the thing to take away is just it's time to start this process. We're here to help. This is your guide, and we will get you and your student to that destination that they want to get to. Okay, if you didn't see, there's a ton of handouts and stuff up there, especially what Ms. Catlett was talking about with the financial aid paperwork. Definitely pick up all of that stuff. It's going to be really helpful, but we're finished here tonight, so reach out to us if you need anything, and thank you so much for coming.